I chose a growth goal in 3 different elements. I chose element 2, tracking student progress, element 6, chunking content, and element 23, when noticing when students are not engaged and reacting. So for element 2, students being able to track growth and progress is very important. This allows them to see where they started and their growth over an extended time. Goal setting is an important part of tracking student progress at different levels throughout my classroom. My students take our state-mandated assessment iStation on a monthly basis as a way of monitoring their learning progress. After each month's assessment, I use tier movement reported by iStation to chart our whole class testing outcomes as well as individual performance, so we can see and use this data as a way of measuring growth over time. Once our whole class performance is charted, I display the charts on the data wall located in the classroom for each student to see for reference. Each month prior to testing as a class, we reference our data and examine our growth charts. This allows us to reflect on what we could do differently to improve and grow as learners. In addition to tracking our monthly progress as a class, I meet with each student individually and assist them in setting goals and completing an individualized growth chart. Upon completion of the students' individualized growth charts, they are placed in their student binders for students to reference and to serve as a motivator to do their best. As the tracking continues from month to month and students achieve our class goal and or their personal goal, a celebration of success abounds by ringing the celebration bell. Analyzing data, tracking students' progress, whole group, and individually setting goals and reaching them allows my students an opportunity to become self-motivated for a greater good. For element 6, chunking content, chunking content of a specific skill set is when the material is taught in chunks or smaller parts, which are often referred to as digestible parts. By chunking this content, it allows for time for my students to progress pieces of specific skill sets before having to put it all together. I implemented math exit tickets as a guide for chunking content for instruction and implementation. Exit tickets also serve as a way to continually monitor the extent of my students' understanding with our daily math lessons. Chunking content allows me to monitor my students' learning over time by administering exit tickets. The information the exit tickets gives helps me intervene immediately. And for element 23, noticing when students are not engaged and reacting, it's essential that teachers be aware when students are not engaged and actively participating in lessons. Not only do teachers need to be aware, but they also have to react and address to the alter the level of engagement among students. I want to ensure that my students are actively listening and participating during instruction. Student engagement is key to learning success and growth. So for my students to grow academically, I want to implement simple strategies to enhance my awareness of student engagement. As a class, we created a social contract to make sure we all take part in providing an environment conducive to student learning. Once we agreed upon the best attributes in sustaining an environment for learning, all students and myself signed the social contract. At the start of each day, we review various attributes of our social contract and discuss what it looks like and sounds like to be actively engaged during instruction and independent work time also. I'm using ClassDojo to monitor the engagement of all my students. As my students display active listening and participation, they are rewarded with dojo points. Once the students accumulate a certain amount of dojo points, they get to be rewarded by their choice of reward.